Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, we will be talking about a potential winter storm brewing in the longer range horizon. In the short term, the next week, there really won't be much. This is with regards to this video to a system that could potentially be brewing out ahead of a very massive pattern change that I talked about yesterday. And it looks like this system will be the first of many storms that could potentially be bringing a lot of snow and cold. Now, despite what this graphic you may think this graphic shows, this is the European MSLP anomaly. So this is basically showing where there are areas of low pressure or high pressure, and you can see that some of the systems the European model situates across the central United States with a strong baroclinic zone. However, you may think that this may mean there is going to be a blizzard on the northern side of it, but because of the extreme warm pattern we have been in, this could actually be more of a concern for severe weather with some snow as opposed to a massive winter storm. However, I'll show you different model variations, as there are some models that take this very system and put it further west across Colorado, and there it could potentially, with the help of the mountain cold, develop into a proper monster winter storm. So I want to go over all those scenarios, but again, this system is still pretty far out. I want to briefly say that up above me there is a timestamp at the very top. You can see it says plus 3 hours 9 a.m. November 11th. So that basically shows you what time frame or what time the map that you see on the bigger screen is happening at. And I say that because I try doing my best to telling you where and when the time is going to be, or where the storm is going to be taking shape along with the time, but sometimes I forget, so I want you guys to keep that in mind. And for my future videos, I always keep it up there, so just so you know. We are starting off with, obviously, if you've been across the eastern United States, the really cold outbreak. It's been more of a warmer pattern with occasional cool downs, and this is exactly that. It's just a brief, sharp attack of cold air, but it's nothing sustained, and the same areas that saw potentially a foot of snow, not potentially, did see a foot of snow across portions of Illinois or Wisconsin, are now going to be seeing the 60s by this upcoming weekend. So yeah, all that snow is going to be long gone, and fall isn't going to be back, not winter. But that's not a concern, because right now, after that, we see warm temperatures, as I just said. There will be a little bit of disturbances still across the Great Lakes, but overall, into Wednesday and Thursday of this and the next few days, we continue the warmth. And really, this continues. The only area of activity is going to be across the west, with potentially another atmospheric river hitting California, Oregon, Washington. And you may be wondering, where is this winter storm? This pattern is not conducive for it. And you're right, it really wouldn't be. However, what we have to notice is, because of the really strong ridge and all that cold air that kind of managed to get way deep into the United States, it allowed the jet stream to form into a really weird pattern and essentially allow for a lot of moisture and a surge of moisture from the Pacific to hit the west. So that is one piece we have to look for. Another one is a cut-off low. Now, the European and GFS both agree on this. There is a potential disturbance that is going to be brewing south of California, pretty far south, but the point is with this is that it kind of cuts itself off from the jet stream, so it could take its time meandering and basically exiting into the United States onto the plains, usually with the help of some other feature that usually gives it moisture. So these cutoff lows, especially around California here, can often intensify, especially this far south where the waters start getting warmer. It usually loads itself with moisture. Now notice that the European model, again, it's a pretty impressive cutoff low, delivering showers and storms. Again, it begins intensifying here as we get that moisture streaming in. This is now Saturday and Sunday, and this is the potential beginning of that first phase of our system. And the models are still obviously in quite disagreement on this because it is far out. I do want to say further up north there will be minimal cold, a little bit of a system, potentially some sort of a hybrid Alberta Clipper developing and dropping potentially quite a bit of snow across central Ontario and into Quebec, and then potentially heavy rain into the weekend in the northeast. So that is definitely something to watch for, but it won't be a massive system in terms of impacts other than a little bit of rain and maybe some ice. It will be pretty impactful for the southern Canadian, more like central Canadian folks there. Note that by Sunday, this cutoff low is now entering into the United States. It's delivering quite a bit of moisture into the southwest, and it continues meandering its way further and further north. Look at this. By the time we get into Monday and Tuesday, the first part of this system, now with the most recent model run of the European, because I said that, I prefaced that because the previous ones, which I'll show you in just a second, take the system as one whole one. The most recent one ejects the first part of it kind of early on, and potentially, even severe weather and thunderstorms as far north as Nebraska, Iowa. For November, it isn't unheard of, but with this warm weather, it's definitely almost normal where it would take shape. You'd expect it to be this far north with the warmth we'll be having. So notice that the European, it delivers it further north here, this little first piece, but it holds back a second piece, which is actually behind some more strong cold air, because winter storms, especially if you want a wound up massive beast of a winter storm, you need the help from a strong jet stream. Okay, so as I was recording this video, I had my microphone die on me. It has been already kind of on and off. It's been getting worse and worse, and it just stopped working. So I switched to an older microphone, and I was actually listening to it, and it sounds almost better quality than the supposedly better one. Either way, I need to get a new microphone, so I apologize if there's an audio change, and I just touched the microphone. And I apologize if I delayed the video in my explanation. Alright, so without further ado, let's start talking about the European here. So, as I was mentioning, we have two pieces to this system. Whether or not it will happen this way, we don't know. The European has been back and forth. All the models have been back and forth, but nonetheless, they do show this system. Notice that this system, that first little piece ejects out. Did you hear that voice crack? The first little piece ejects into Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, Missouri, and because of the lack of cold air, as I was explaining, this fails to materialize into anything and kind of moves off with the jet stream, whatever there is of it at that point. But it saves a second piece for the mountains, as I mentioned, and do note that with that scenario, we see potentially more snow across the Wyoming, Utah, Colorado area, but eventually this system does move into the plains, and regardless whether or not it's from the one piece, two pieces, or both of the pieces combined, like the GFS does show, I'll show you that in just a second here, you can see that it does end up forming into a system, a pretty powerful storm as well. You can see that there's a really powerful cold front to drag down behind it. There could be definitely a severe weather threat. And with the help from a system here moving its way into the west coast, you can see it's a pretty powerful one. A lot of this cold air digs its way close and hugs this system, allowing it to develop into a nasty, more powerful storm. So there's still a possibility that this thing does become a wind-field beast, with a potential blizzard on the backside across Canada. But what I'll just show you in just a second here, the models aren't necessarily convinced about that. So this is still the European model, and we don't have to go far back. This is the model run that preceded the model run I just showed you, and you can see that it shows a system much further west. It does not show a lot of snow on the northern side of it, but it shows a lot of rain, a lot of severe weather potentially, thunderstorms, and a very powerful cold front. Not much cold air behind it, but nonetheless a powerful cold front. An incredible shape to this system, which normally would be snow on the backside of this if it was colder, but again, we're in a very warm pattern here. And this system, being out ahead of that massive pattern change that's coming into December, will probably be void of a massive snowy side if a scenario like this plays out. Eventually, even a system like this will produce snow as it enters into Canada, or with the more previous model run that I just showed you, as it develops into a stronger system and allows more cold air to develop with it, kind of hug into it, it will produce more snow. Now, the GFS has a scenario with the same system that develops it further west, more hugging the Colorado area, Wyoming. So obviously the cold from the mountains there allows it to develop into a much stronger snow system. So again, the time frames at the very top, this is now the GFS model. It's kind of the opposite to the European model, the yin and yang of the models. If they agree on anything at all, especially this far out, it's always worthy to note and take an kind of a look at, and they've been doing this for a few days now, so this is definitely something I want to take a glance at, and why I'm making this video. So do note, it's the same setup. We have that cutoff flow developing and bringing moisture into the southwest United States. It has potentially a lot of rain, a lot of snow, so this will definitely be a flooding concern for the southwest, but potentially a good event for the snowpack there. And do note that this system, like I mentioned, stays further west, so it brings a lot of heavy snow. It's almost, you could call it a Colorado low, and it brings a lot of snow into Colorado, Wyoming, into South Dakota, Nebraska. And this system doesn't end up winding up into a beast because, unlike the European model, it almost has no cold air with it. That snow right there is already very borderline very heavy wet snow falling in 31, 32-degree air, and behind it, where that heavy snow precipitation goes away, it goes back to rain, which often happens with such events. So this system will be a big storm most likely, and it will be expansive. Whether or not it delays its development and develops further east across the east coast, it may develop into a more powerful storm with a strong wind field, or it will stay a sloppy blob. But nonetheless, this system, whatever happens with it, will be most likely a precursor of many large systems in late November and early December that will be a lot more powerful and a lot more wintry. And just to show you, you can see the new model run of the GFS shows more cold air. Immediately following that, with another large system kind of far north. Again, this is at this point way too far out. There is no agreement with the European model on this one because it's further out. So I'm just showing you it for the fun of it. And you can see that there is potentially another system not far behind it with a lot more cold air in place. So that is definitely something to watch for. And what's interesting with the GFS, that it's kind of consistent. So this is now the most recent model run. It's 40 minutes old, so it's very fresh as of 6:08 November 11th. And do note that this GFS model run shows that same system in that same area, the southwest. It shows a decent little bit of cold air potentially moving in, so a little bit more maybe than the previous model run. Either way, though, not much cold air. Still enough for it to produce snow across Colorado, and again, pretty similar areas, model run to model run, so we are seeing some consistency. Unfortunately, it is almost a week, more than a week out, so we will have to see what exactly happens, whether or not it's more of an eastern coastal system, a central United States system, or potentially a Colorado low with very heavy snow there. We will have to wait and see. Notice that the system kind of just, again, sloppily moves out and about. Without the lack of cold air, it falls apart. Notice, however, again, just like with the previous GFS model run, we have that cold air coming in behind it, and this has been in the signals on and off now for quite a few days. The European and the GFS operational models that go out to 360 or 384 models, depending on which one you look at. Models, I meant to say hours, depending on which one you look at, have just begun to start to show cold air moving in towards the end of the month. But we really had to look at the long range models and what the Climate Prediction Center was saying in order to kind of see what may be happening in the long range into early December. Which what I saw was very, very cold air and potential pattern that is very interesting, which prompted me to make yesterday's video. And you can see that we end up seeing quite a bit of cold air move in. Alright, so the last thing I want to show you is not related to this system directly. It is for my long range forecast lovers. And I want to show you the new model run that came in today that comes in every 3 to 4 days. It goes out to 46 days, and it's a European ensemble. So if you recall from yesterday's video, these were the group of models that have been showing that cold air in the longer range, way beyond what the GFS and European just go out to in 384 hours. And they began showing this around the 27th of October, so before even Halloween. So at this point, almost 2 weeks. And it's been really interesting to watch, as with each model run, they've been not only keeping that cold air, but they've been intensifying it. So that signal is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And just now we are beginning to see the GFS and European at the the last few time frames of their very long range forecasts kind of catch on to that and be like, whoa, there could be a big change here. So I want to run through this briefly and show you that prior to that, up until Thanksgiving, and where our winter storm that I talked about today may be occurring, the only cold will be across the west, which is why I believe the GFS scenario a little bit more than the European, because that is really only where we would have any potential to develop into a very powerful system and drop snow. But we will have to wait and see. The European model has been not only showing an eastward scenario or eastern scenario, but has been kind of trending even further and further towards the east. So we will have to wait and see which model run is correct. But you can see that it's developing in warm air, this system, so it won't be a monster. However, behind it, there isn't an immediate cool off, as we saw. Again, if there was an immediate cool off, it would probably develop into a much larger system. It will just have a lot of moisture, most likely. But eventually, behind it, or indirectly behind it, a few days behind it, there is going to be some sort of a pattern change, a moderation, and you can see that the long-range models do show that, and they are showing quite a bit of cold air, and it intensifies. And this is, again, pretty far out, and this is a strong, strong signal. And these models, they like to keep it warm in the long range unless there's a strong signal. They kind of have a warm bias, if you will. So this is now December 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Again, it's keeping this cold air on for a while, and not only is this like cold air, of a footprint of a cold air, but what's more interesting is that we have been in a very, very, very warm pattern from all of September, all of October, and all of November. There have been occasional cool downs like we saw across the southeast, yes, but you can't call that a cold pattern. It's been a warm pattern with cool spells. We can now potentially see a break in that, where we see a lot more cold and sustained cold. And you can see that it tries disappearing that cold from the eastern United States for a little bit here, around the 17th, 18th maybe, but then it re-intensifies that signal much stronger and potentially takes on more of a kind of northwest flow, which would support clippers, potentially large systems as well to the south. So very, very interesting. And even if this upcoming system doesn't pan out, it looks as if there will be many, many behind it that will be a lot more exciting. So I'll catch you all in the next video. That is all I have for you today, and stay safe.